My name is Greg Anton. I'm the chairman and CEO of Anton Collins Mitchell, CPA firm in Denver, Colorado. The What's at Stake initiative was an initiative developed by the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and I actually co-founded that initiative with the AICPA. Specifically, it is a program designed to inform policymakers and citizens about the U.S. government's financial statements and the finances of our country. The state of the nation's finances are really in disarray. They're not in a position that anybody could be proud of. Ultimately, what I would ask policymakers, politicians, and those running in our state and across the country to look at the financial statements, understand what's in the financial statements, use them as a tool for policy making, and most importantly, evaluate the information that's available at aicpa.org/what's at stake. That website provides tutorials, information about the financial information, links to the financial reports, and it's valuable information for any policymaker to understand, to put forward a platform to change the historical behaviors of policymakers that have created these massive deficits and bring the opportunity to surpluses in the future for citizens, particularly young citizens, so the burden isn't on their backs in the future. Unfortunately, there aren't tools that are being utilized. What happens in policymaking and in legislation is they generally will evaluate the cost of that legislation, and they're evaluating the cost of legislation in making an estimate and a determination of what the future costs will be. There's never really an evaluation of where is the revenue going to come from to pay for those obligations. And a budget, an annual budget, isn't enough. The policymakers are utilizing an annual budget, and they look at the annual budget. They understand there's an annual budget. They understand that the annual budget is about $500 billion in deficit in the current year, and it's projected to increase. The deficits are projected to increase in the future. They understand that. They also believe that the deficits on an annual basis are relatively small compared to the United States government and the US GDP as a whole, but it's 1 year's deficit. It's similar to saying, well, what I spent on my credit card this month was only $1,000 more than I earned. And if you did that every month, at the end of the year, you'd have $12,000 in the hole. If you did that for 10 years, multiply that by 10, and you continue to put yourself in a massive hole. That's what's happening and continues to happen. The financial statements historically haven't been utilized as a tool, primarily because the federal government was in a better financial position, and operating with an annual budget was sufficient, primarily because they weren't outspending the receipts by such a significant margin. And as a result of having significant deficit spending over the last quarter of a century, and they're continuing to grow, we're now faced with the significant problem where in the first 220 years of our country's operations, we operated basically break even, where the revenues that came in were sufficient to pay the bills. Well, over the last quarter of a century, that's not been the case. The bills far exceed the revenue, and as a result, we need to manage with more tools and more resources. Most individuals are fascinated to learn what a trillion really means, because everything that I've talked about and everything I'm going to be talking about is in trillions. And most of us can get our arms around a million. And I like putting this in the terms of time. So 1,000,000 seconds is approximately 11.5 days. 1 billion seconds is approximately 32 years. 1 trillion seconds is 32,000 years. And everything I'm going to be talking about are trillions of dollars, 32,000 years in seconds.